All right, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. My name is Beth. I work with the Missouri After School Network, and we are joined for the CAPSA Symposium of 2022 with Alex Miller from Missouri Scholarship Loan and Foundation. And Alex, if you could kindly introduce yourself, that would be wonderful and get us started. And if you guys have any questions, you're welcome to throw them in the chat and we'll make sure or unmute as Alex directs us. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you both for being here. I've introduced myself earlier, but Katie, I don't know that we have formally been introduced. So my name is Alexandria Miller. I work with Missouri Scholarship and Loan Foundation, and I'm program manager here. And I just like to note that, this is 8 months for me in this position, but before I came to this, I always say the fun side, the scholarship side. I actually was boots on the ground, post-secondary, and my formal position was actually Senior Director of Financial Aid and also over our graduate and online admissions. So like I said, this is the fun side for sure. So just like to give that little background, just so as we get started, kind of just have that. At any time you want to unmute yourself, raise your hand. There's only 2 of you all in this program, so feel free. I like to have an open conversation, so I'm not just talking at the screen. And so we'll go ahead and get started today. We are going to be touching on our Finish Line program. And so earlier I talked about our 9th grade program, my MO, but this is going to go to the other side where this is going to be a resource for your families and your community that you can take back and really, help someone really get to the finish line per se. So we'll jump in. For maybe you haven't heard about the foundation, but Missouri Scholarship and Loan Foundation is the foundation of MOHELA. And so our whole mission is to give back. And so we create these products and services that help Missouri students. And, we kind of focus in on particularly, it's going to be a long day if I can't talk today, particularly those who have insufficient financial resources, so low income, those families who are first gen a lot of times. And so, we want to, prepare them for post-secondary at a Missouri institution. And it is key there to point out that we really are focused on Missouri. And so Finish Line Degree Completion Grant is a program that has a goal to really just increase degree completion in the state of Missouri. We saw that there was a need, so our board in fall of 2019 started this program, and so we kind of got it off the ground, and you'll see here in a little bit that we are really growing this program. And so we do this by assisting students who are Missouri residents and help them pay a back balance. More than likely they stopped out due to life happening, and so that now they have a back balance that's causing them to not be able to either re-enroll or transfer to another institution in the state. And so we'll help them by paying up to $3,000 of that back balance. As I mentioned, the program did start in fall of 19, and when we started this program, we actually had a splitting component between the foundation and the school. And so the school would be responsible for either writing off $1,500 or possibly finding some other type of endowment to help the students, and we would pay half, which would be that $1,500. And so, of course, that was before my time when I arrived, but as a director who was trying to get this program utilized at my school, I was really trying to, think outside of the box with my business office and my registrar's office, and how can we work together to bring some of those students back to my school who had stopped out that were so close to finishing. But unfortunately, the school just, could not come up with the means, or they didn't believe that, the ROI was there, unfortunately. And so, that was a common story that we were hearing at the foundation. And so our board was hearing that and, hearing the staff at the foundation talk about, this school really would love to implement it, but this is a barrier. And so they made the decision early in 21 to remove that. And so for the start of the 21-22 school year, we removed that barrier. And so now we just pay up to $3,000. There's no more splitting component, which is great. And so we're seeing a lot more schools, push this and utilize it. The other thing is we simplified the application process. We do use My Scholarship Central as our scholarship application. But we took away them having to do the general application, and now it's just a flexible app. So to be eligible for this program, they need to be a Missouri resident, They also need to have a back balance at a Missouri school, and they need to be looking to re-enroll at that Missouri school or transfer to another Missouri school. This is kind of a need component. We do say they need to have roughly about a 12,000 EFC or less, but again, we kind of are flexible there. So if they have a 15,000 EFC, there might be some room that we could definitely help them with. We do ask that the back balance be 6 months or older. I do want to note that we don't say they had to stop out, but it needs to be at least 6 months or older. I think what we're seeing now, and the data I think will kind of show this once we run the 21-22 data, is that younger students who are running into situations where COVID, institutions removed the policy of allowing students to continue enroll forward balances before COVID hit and the pandemic really, allowed, had to make institutions kind of decide like, okay, are we going to make some exceptions here and allow students to continue on? Because a lot of institutions had a hard stop. You had a balance, it had to be zero before you could enroll, or it had to be under a certain threshold. But unfortunately, what we saw with the pandemic was schools started to relax that policy. And so now we're starting to see students who have these balances but have been continued enrolling each semester, but now they're getting to graduation. So we intentionally don't say stop out, but the balance has to be at least 6 months or older. They also need to be near completion. So 30 credit hours or less is what we like to see. And we say approximately. And so they also need to be meeting SAP, which is determined by the financial aid office. And so after the student applies for this program, I always go back to the school and verify all of the information. And they kind of say, yes, the student is a good candidate, or no, they're not because of X. And we try to work with the student to get them, to be in good standing with the school. When the student goes to apply, they also need to have 2 documents from the institution: a degree completion grant, a degree completion plan, and a statement showing the back balance. And so those 2 documents can be obtained from the school so that they can upload them to their application. So I want to talk a little bit about our demographics that, we kind of saw some trends in 2021. And so in 2021, it still had that splitting component, and so we only had 107 recipients, which that'll be important when we get down to when we start talking about 21-22 data. So we only, funded 107 recipients. And so we want to make sure that we continue to grow this. And so that's kind of where I've come in, really pushing this. Let's think outside of the box and not be so siloed when we're talking to the financial aid offices. Can we work with admissions to know, like in the back of their mind, like, hey, this is a resource that we have in the state. If they qualify, have them apply. So our admissions is being aware now. Enrollment Management, the registrar's office, the business office. And so really making it a team effort on college campuses and not just the sole, responsible party being financial aid to kind of keep this information. And then also kind of pushing it out, of course, to the community organizations. So for those 107 recipients, we paid out almost $120,000. And so we have exceeded that this year, which we're very excited about. But again, because of that splitting component, we weren't seeing many utilize it. The average hours that we saw that students needed to complete their degree in 2021 was 25.5 hours. And so we thought that was great because it was students who, maybe only had a couple hours to 30 hours, but our average was 25.5. The average month, which I always think this is something, major to point out, was 35.5 months. So think back to, if you don't pay a bill usually after a semester, you're already starting to creep towards collection. So imagine all of these students that had bills larger than, $3,000 that are now going to collection, and it's just growing. And so one thing that we will help with this program is if it is in collections, we will help the student pay collection costs. We pay through the school, so most of the time the school pulls everything back. And sometimes they also now will start a conversation with, okay, we can reduce some of this, some of the interest charges or the fees that were associated with it, because they know that the $3,000 is coming to them if we can get the student back enrolled. And then you'll see there the average back balance was about $1,866. The other thing we do with this program is we track success. And so it's important to know that 73% of our students from the 2021 cohort are still either enrolled or they completed the degree, which is really great news also. So it's working, and that's, you know, something that our board loves to see. So I love this graphic because it really, you know, shows you who's utilizing the program. So you'll see there that, you know, mostly it's, you know, the white Caucasian ethnic using it, but we are really trying to be diverse in this program. And so we have over, you know, looks like, I can't add these up quickly enough, but we're roughly pushing almost 50%, a little over 50%, a diverse people of color that are utilizing this program, which is great. Also female, one thing that we saw, and I kind of said this at the beginning, was, you know, life happens. More than likely, the female got pregnant, went to go start a family, or needed to step out because she already had a family. And so we do see female as, you know, majority using this program. But again, we're trying to grow this and use for other demographics. Southwest has been the main, you know, group utilizing this. We actually have one school in Springfield utilizing this program the most, which is Jury, which they've really been great, and we've had them, you know, talk nationwide about this program on how they utilized it with their enrollment management team. So you'll see 27.2% is who utilized the program in the Southwest, but really I can tell you honestly, it was between Jury and OTC who found ways to make this work for their students. But we're hoping that now that we're kind of growing this program, we'll start to spread out the love a little bit more over the state. Because we know in KC and St. Louis, there's tons of schools that could utilize this program. So with the average need, you know, being 12,000 or less, we saw that over 73%, you know, we needed to be able to use this program, but it's important to note here that 95.1% are either a 0 to 4,000 EFC. So your neediest students, and I know sometimes that can be confusing, but a 0 EFC means they're the neediest of the group. So a 0 to 4,000 EFC was utilizing this program. So we're helping students who, one, may have been in collections already, but two, they're already your neediest students who are getting Pell Grants and other assistance. And so we love that that's who's utilizing the program. That's what it's meant for, is to help those students. And so the average, though, was about 2,400. Other important fact here is we were seeing older students utilizing this program. I think with the data next year, we'll start to see a little bit of a swing the other direction just because of the students who were continue to be enrolled. But 2021 data was showing that the average was 30.9 years old was the average age. And so if you add that up between the 24 and older group, that is a 75.9% group that was utilizing this program. So I want to work together with you in your community and in your programs, you know, to make this program work for your students. And so it's intentionally flexible. I think that is the one thing that we push the most. And so I said 30 credit hours. You know, if it's 35, have them apply, because there is a good possibility that we can make that work. And, you know, is it a little less than 6 months? Let's talk about it. Let's see if there's something that we can do. And so just making sure that we have awareness and collaboration among institutions and non-for-profit organizations is very important to us. And so, you know, I said this in my MIMO presentation, but if there's something that I can come and present on or talk about this with your students, I would love to be able to do that. And so I want to talk about this 21-22 data at the bottom. So I said that we're growing. Already through half the year, we've funded 85 students, and we're already at 162,000, roughly, almost 163,000 that we've already paid out this year. And so one thing with, you know, we want to continue on is just continuing to grow that, because there's enough funding in this program that we can spend 500,000 more. So that's just going to help those students get to the finish line. There's some in the chat. I want to make sure before I go to the next slide. And Dr. Campbell, I think I just hit on this, but it is flexible, so the credit hours to complete. I've worked with students who have upward of 45, and so we want to make sure that our average number doesn't go over that 30 credit hour, just because our board will be like, wait a minute, the average is, supposed to be lower than that. But I've worked with students who have 45, because then we also have worked with students who need to just graduate and get their transcript, and so they have 0 credit hours left. And so that kind of helps us average out the program.
And I'm thinking in terms of when you say life happens, it could be a senior, someone who might just need to complete that term.
Yep.
So they might
Yep.
have 15 to 18.
Yep. Yeah, so as long as it's roughly about 30 or less is what we say. So like I said, I just helped a student at one of the schools who is looking to get into a master's program, but she couldn't get her official transcript because she had this balance at Truman. And so I worked with Truman to be able to get that balance paid off so that she could get that official to basically get admitted now to MU for her master's program. And so, yeah, she didn't have any credit hours left in her bachelor's program, but we still helped her because really she couldn't complete the degree per se because she couldn't get her transcript and better herself. So we are happy to help with that student like you're talking about, the senior who's enrolled needing to, pay a back balance.
So let me ask you this, is there any type of commitment after the money has been awarded? What is the obligation? What is it to say their life happens again and the student has to stop attending school for some reason and the money has been paid out? What happens?
So the one thing we tell the student is when we pay out, if you don't ever get back enrolled, then we would request the funds back. As long as the student returns to school, there's no commitment. We want them to just at least get back enrolled. So if life happens again and they have to stop out, unfortunately, that's we hope that they're not back in a back balance situation because this is a one-time only grant, so they can't get it again. But we're not going to hold them to it because they didn't finish that degree. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I've never actually had any student who applied for this, got the grant, and then never re-enrolled, at least in my time that I've been taken over this program. And then I'll just touch again on our other programs, and I think Clint's going to drop the website link into the chat for me. But we have other programs here at Missouri Scholarship and Loan Foundation that can help your students. And so Director's Choice Emergency Grant is a current college student emergency grant. So if you know any college students who are going through some type of emergency and they're needing urgent funds, we pay up to $1,500. They do have to go through the financial aid office at their institution to receive the application, and they kind of vet them through what the process is and that the qualifications, but that's an emergency grant that we're helping with. And during the pandemic, we were seeing use of this, job loss, unfortunately, or maybe not job loss, but they just got their hours cut, or medical bills. We've seen a huge increase of medical bills, and so that is an option for students in Missouri right now. MoFelt is an interest-free loan that we have here. It is a last gap, funding, and so they have to take all of their other financial aid and federal loans before we'll offer it. And only four-year institutions are, in that program. Just because 2 years don't usually offer student loans, they can, but usually a lot of the students don't need loans because the cost of the attendance is so low. And then right now we have our Purdy Emerging Leader Scholarship application is open. This is for Missouri students who are leading on their Missouri campuses. I talked about this earlier, but it's a $5,000 scholarship that is renewable up to 3 years. And so it's a great opportunity for, your students who are leaders to apply and, get a little bit additional help. And then we have our Access Extra Scholarship, not to be confused with Access Missouri Grant, but it's an addition to. And it's $12,000, it's an EFC 12,000 or less, and they can apply for this and have it renewed up to 4 years for $2,000 each year. And so it's just an additional stackable scholarship that can help them. So it's a 12,000 EFC or less need on that one. And then our new program, MIMO, which I presented on earlier, which is for our high school freshmen. It's a promise program that they can actually graduate from high school with a promise of $10,000 or, to take any 2 or 4 year school. All right, and there is my information. And so I think we'll also drop that into the chat. Katie, yes, so they can, we haven't actually said, like, it has to be this degree level. So I've helped someone in a certificate program. I've helped someone in an associate's degree, a master's degree. And so they could be in any level, in any program. As long as, with the certificate, we say, they have to be under that 30 credit hour. And so most certificate programs are less than that, but we just double check with the financial aid office to make sure that, they may be in a certificate program and a degree program, but if it's, to help pay a back balance on that certificate program, we'll help them out with that as well. So we haven't put any stipulation on it has to be a certain degree level. So it's a great question.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the biggest takeaway on this one is it's intentionally flexible. So, if a student, like I said, is not in the parameters of the requirements that we set, have them call me, let's talk through it. Really, I've become the middleman, really, between the student and the school. Melissa, when she put me in charge of this program, she's like, you know how to talk the talk and walk the walk with the financial aid offices. So she's like, you can really understand and ask the questions that need to be answered before you even go to the school and say, this is the situation. And so I think one school that I first reached out to when I had a student, I was like, I don't know if they've applied for this or, taking care of this. And, and they're like, wait a minute, you're stepping on our toes a little bit. But then once they figured out that I was a director before, and I'm like, I'm just trying to help you out. So, it really is something that I love this program. It changes these people's lives. I've worked with a student who was 68 years old recently, before Thanksgiving. Brings tears to my eyes because she still calls me and like we're the best of buds. But she was 68 and she just wanted to finish her degree, but she couldn't get her diploma because she had this stupid back balance hanging over her head. And so we were able to get the back balance paid right before Thanksgiving, and she received her diploma in the mail right before she went to the holidays with her family. And she was able to take that to her brothers and sisters, and she called me and was so grateful. And that's why we do what we do, right? So that just, that story right there, I just love because we're making changes and really changing lives. And so it makes me proud of this program.
And Alex, you may have touched on this, but where does the funding come from? Is it totally state or is it other sources?
So we're actually privately funded by MOHELA.
Okay.
So we're not even state associated. Okay. So, yep, we are privately funded.
And in MOHELA, and it's just donations as well. I mean, it's just totally from fundraising.
Yeah. So we are MOHELA's foundation. Sorry, I don't know if I said that at the beginning. I know I said that at the beginning of my MIMO, but we're the foundation of MOHELA. Okay. And MOHELA, for those who don't know, is a federal loan servicer. And so they're in the state of Missouri, MOHELA is, and so we just give back to those Missouri students and institutions.
Okay, that's good to know.
What other questions do y'all have? Is this something that you think that, maybe we can make something work in your communities that you work with? I can come and do a presentation or something with your team to help them understand this program.
I think this in the after school program, we are always encouraging the growth mindset. So this is an opportunity for our parents to even take a look at. And the reason I asked about commitment was because we created a program for our staff where we helped them with barriers and created opportunities for back balances. But when we made that payment, they didn't move forward in new programs. And maybe it's not the time. I don't know what prevented them from moving forward, but that's why I asked about the commitment.
Yeah. And you said something about your staff. That's really where this program was built out of. I don't know if anyone had the chance to meet Ray Bear before he retired from Mohila, but he was our CEO before. And he, would walk around and he was so personable. He asked, how you were, and he remembered, what was going on in your life. And so he was talking with some staff members, and, he was talking about degrees, and they, brought up that they couldn't complete because they had these back balances. He's like, well, I think we could do something about that. And so then, he built this program. And so it is important to know that the student really does need to be pursuing to get back enrolled. And I make that very clear when I talk to the student, like, hey, if you don't get registered for this semester, we will request the funds back. But thankfully, I haven't had a situation where I've had to pull the funds back and call the student and say, hey, I heard you didn't get enrolled. I've had a situation where the student didn't get in time for like spring semester. And so, we're like, okay, summer semester, you need to get enrolled. And if you don't at that time, then we'll request the funds back as well. So we tried not to put any more hurdles in front of them. The past couple weeks has been very busy with applications for this at the, start of the semester. And so I'm hopeful that all of my students that I just helped are on their way, and we'll check up on them in a couple months. So. Dr. Campbell, I would love to come and, talk to your after-school program if you feel like there's a need there for MyMo and for Finish Line.
Yes, what I'm going to do is talk to the chief of programs to see if we could get you on the calendar to speak to our site managers who are responsible for family engagements and see how to roll it out that way. But I think starting with the site managers, we can get the word out to the programs.
Perfect.
Yeah, it sounds like, Alex, that one of your challenges is just awareness, because there's help available. And I think that's the case with so many assistance programs, that there's people that don't know that it's there to help them accomplish what they're, trying to accomplish. And so us knowing about it, helping to get the word out there, getting the word to staff, and families. That's just, I think, part of the challenge is so people know, because there's people, that are out there that are in that situation, and then they hear about it through some way and they go, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So we appreciate it.
Sometimes we just have individuals who do not know the questions to ask. So just by presenting and making that awareness, you have more engagement and involvement.
Yeah, you're so right. And just finding that right avenue. So, with a lot of our programs, we start either with the financial aid office or, with MyMo, I really kind of focused heavily on the high schools themselves. But now I've started more focusing on, organizations that are non-for-profit working with these, certain populations, because they're the ones already who have built a relationship with these students who they trust already. And so I am excited that I was able to present today. I thank you both for hosting me today, Clint and Beth. And thank you all for joining me. I know there was 2 other sessions that looked amazing up against, and so I'm glad you all spent the afternoon with me to learn more about this program. I think there's a survey. Yes, Clint just dropped it in.
Clint is on it. So drop the survey in the tool and make sure, Clint, you're just like clockwork here. I can talk and you just fill it in. Thank you, Vanna. The final sessions today are a very brief wrap up for a reflection session. Clint, what time does that start without me looking here at our plan of show? So that's at 2:45, it looks like. So you get a little break.
Yeah, you get a little break.
So thank you, Alex, for sharing. I've heard a lot about your guys' services and stuff, but to get a real breakdown of how it really could work with anyone from 9th grade to 100. So it could support anyone. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Y'all have a good day.
You too.
Thank you so much, and good information, and look forward to continuing to work with you to get the word out there.
Thanks, Clint. Have a good day.
Okay, you all too. And hopefully we'll see some of you at our wrap-up session at 2:45.
I'll be there.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.